All right, now that we've done a quick run through of the CLS and the IPOS documentation, we also have, we're supposed to, and we need to be tracking Casey's behavior support plan data. This is what Sparks Behavior Therapy, Caitlin and Colton, excuse me, are coming in to monitor. This documentation specifically provides a lot of insight to Network 180 and to the people who authorize services for Casey. Um, this documentation shows how deep her needs are and how important it is for us to have the right kind of staff and the right amount of staff, just to make sure that everyone is safe, especially Casey. We have to make sure that we document all of the times that she shows aggression or behaviors that are, just socially not what we would hope from any living person. Um, so it's exactly the same layout as the paper form. You're gonna put the date and the time that the target behavior started. You're gonna put the approximate amount of time that the behavior lasted, your name, what time did she wake up that day, did she sleep through the night, I'll just put, even though she doesn't usually get up at 8 a.m. anymore, did she sleep through the night, yes or no. That's always a good indication of maybe something's wrong or she's not feeling well. Did she attend a community outing before your shift or before this event happened? Sometimes that in itself can just be overwhelming, and that in itself could be the reason why she's having a hard time coping. But other times we just don't know, so we can select that we are unsure. And just like we've been doing on the paper documentation, we're going to write in the antecedent, which there's a description of that, like what was happening before the behavior or the target behavior took place. Like, how was Casey acting? What was she doing? What were you doing? Were you on your phone and was she hovering above you for attention? Or were you right there giving her attention and she just all of a sudden couldn't handle anything? So you'll just document whatever here. Um, and then they want to know specifically, like, what type of things happened. Did she have any precursors, like stomping her feet, whining? Sometimes it could be maybe just sort of like turning on and off the lights or anything that she can do to sort of get your attention, or try to get you to engage with her, that's but in a negative way. Did she have any self-injurious behaviors? Was there physical aggression towards herself or others? Did she try to run away from you or run out of the house or out into the community? Was there any property destruction? And that means, did she even attempt it? Like, if she is attempting to open the cupboards or the pantries, even though they're locked, if they weren't locked, she would have destroyed what was in there. And then also, of course, inappropriate touch. Um, and then the very next thing, just again, just like the paper documentation that we've been doing, is the severity scale. So just, documenting how extreme was this target behavior. And obviously level 3 is the worst case scenario. That is blood, biting, any type of like physical marks on her, on you, or and also we're gonna categorize head banging in that category because that is highly dangerous, even if she isn't bleeding. And this is another point. Just do keep in mind that we should be offering the PRN before it reaches an escalation. When we see these precursors here at the very beginning, when we see precursors of Casey starting to get agitated or not being able to cope, that is when we want to start thinking, okay, is a PRN needed? And it's kind of a sweet spot of actually offering her that support before it escalates. Because once she's already this far into her crisis cycle where she's full on, it's almost that like she cannot stop it. And she kind of has to go all the way through it. And that can be just so traumatic for us and for her. And it's just heartbreaking. But yeah, so then you're going to indicate the level 1, 2, or 3. And then you're going to do a written description of what the behavior looked like. And this should be more specifically just about Casey. What was she doing? What was happening? What are her specific behaviors? And then here is going to be the consequence is going to be like, how did you, as a staff support person, how did you respond to that? Um, and I just want to be really sure to note that it's really important that we don't ever talk about physically restraining anyone because that is not allowed. There are times when it could look like maybe Casey wants us to hold her hands and it might look like we're holding her, but it's important to document here what actually happened, that she wanted to hold hands and she had your shirt and wouldn't let go, or whatever actually took place. If physical management is used in any way to restrict her movement or her body, you have to justify that with a very good reason of why you are imposing onto her and restricting her body movements. That is, otherwise it is considered abuse. So you want to make sure that you say, like, I stood in front of her to block her from the doorway, and when she tried to push me out of the way, I held her hands and walked her backwards so that she wouldn't be able to leave the house and run into the road. You know, you have to show that there's imminent harm to her, to you, or to someone else in the community to use physical management. That's the only reasons that that would be accepted. And then it needs to be in the least restrictive mode possible and for the least amount of time possible. So obviously, if that's taking place, you should have already called and asked permission to administer a PRN. And you're going to select whether that was administered or not. And if it was, um, and physical management wasn't used, which would be the best scenario, if physical management is used, you're going to need to describe what you did very specifically. And again, please be very careful with your verbiage because I know that all of you there are very, very careful with Casey, but it's really important to know that this documentation isn't just, it's not just me and Sonia and Brent viewing it. It is going to other entities. And in the event that something tragic happened, it might not matter what we think, what we know. What they're going to do is somebody else might actually prosecute or, have questions about what you did. So just be thorough and very, very diligent with your documentation in terms of like what you had to do and why. And then it's the same thing here as far as like, what do you think Casey's trying to communicate? Was she overtired, not feeling well? Whatever you think that could be, you'll document here. And then as per the behavior plan, what do you think that we could have done to help prevent this from happening in the future? Is there anything that we could do different to support her better? Like, there are times when it's blatantly obvious, and there are times when it's like, I have no idea what happened there or why. Um, and then we just want to make sure that we're documenting anytime that there's physical marks on her body. And even if it didn't happen during behavior, we want to make sure that we document this here. So if a PRN was used, you're going to have to complete the PRN protocol as well, which is kind of like, I know that it's a little redundant, but it goes into a separate category. So you'll have to just make sure that you document that. Wow, I can't really do this and talk at the same time. Sorry. Sheesh. Okay. So again, this is the exact modification from paper to digital of the PRN protocol. So you're just going to make sure that you answer all of these questions, and I'm going to be asking you this on the phone if you do happen to call me. And then it's going to ask you for any like side effects. Did you notice that it was effective or not? And again, you can come back and save and restart whatever is needed. So sorry, that was a very long description of the behavior support plan, but I did want to make sure to mention those critical things.